Complex. Complex. Complex.
Hearing all this, that, and this, and that. Tell the truth, nigga. Whack. Your top 10 is anonymous. Your top 10 is anonymous.
Complex.
Your top 10 is anonymous. Sending all these mixed signals just like androgynous. Them YouTube views-
What's poppin', pimp? This is your boy AJ Dubs here to motivate, inspirate, and dedicate my services to helping you create your future. I'm back at it again for the next story. Story number 23. Greatness comes with adversity. I'll repeat that. Greatness comes with adversity. There was a line on a movie called Spider-Man where Spider-Man's uncle says, with great power comes great responsibility. But I also say, but what you do with that power is what matters the most. So I want you to think in your head, name as many people as you can that are in the midst of greatness, including you. Especially if you're on the right track and you're focused on what you want. So I'm going to start with the list of few people, that actually went through adversity. Like the JV story I told you before with Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had to play JV basketball to develop his game. And because he didn't get to varsity his 10th grade year, that's what pushed him to want to be great. He would come to the gym 6 o'clock in the morning or like an hour before school just to come in and shoot jumpers and get himself prepared for the season on JV, and worked his way into the varsity spot his junior year as he grew to about 6'3", 6'4". And next thing you know, he became an all-stater, all-American, ended up in North Carolina, winning the national championship. Going into the league, spent about 7 years working hard to get to the next level, winning the championship. And finally, in 1991, he won his first championship. Now think about all the work he had to put in between that time of going from college into the pros, having to deal with other great teams that were beating him every time, and he had to keep working on getting bigger and getting stronger because he had to learn how to take the hits from other teams. Working on his strength, working on, his jumper a lot more. And the reason why he working on his jumper a lot more is because, he would go to the hole, but he wouldn't go to the hole as much to protect himself a lot more so that way he could score more points versus having to go to the hole and getting knocked down all the time. And that's what made him great. Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner was a good quarterback coming out of college. And he worked his way past the starting quarterback to be the starting quarterback at Northern Iowa. And he would always tell himself that he was going to play in the pros. And the funny thing about it, he had to go through adversity. It took him a couple years. He had to go through arena football for a couple years. Finally won a championship. Ended up in NFL Europe and doing well over there. And as years went by, he finally got a chance to play in the pros, which was the St. Louis Rams, known as the greatest show on turf. And then when one of the quarterbacks actually got hurt, starting quarterback got hurt, or something like that happened, I don't know exact detail, but something that happened where he actually got the opportunity to be the starting quarterback. When his coach came up to him, pulled him aside, put him out in the stadium while everybody was in the locker room and told him that he was going to be the starting quarterback, and he finally got the opportunity to do that and ended up winning a Super Bowl and also got to play in the second Super Bowl. He didn't win the second one, but greatness comes with adversity. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs is one of the biggest computer tycoons of the 21st century. Created Apple computers. When he started working for Apple, he ended up getting fired from the company. Years later, in between the time, he was already working on a new type of computer that Apple could possibly use, a new prototype. And as years went by, Apple, started to decline in sales and product and all those things. And then they finally begged Steve Jobs to come back. And when he came back, that's when he created the Apple computer that he created. I don't know the exact specific one, but he created a new system, a new program, new technology that Apple needed to actually refresh their company and to become the billion-dollar company it is now. Adversity, people. Kobe Bryant. I bet what you didn't know about Kobe Bryant when he was a rookie going into the NBA, he had to compete for the last spot on the LA Lakers. There was another player that he had to outshine in order to get the last spot. So what he would do, he stayed behind at least an hour after every practice, probably and before too, and would shoot jumpers all day long, probably until his fingers bled for all we know. But that work ethic, that adversity, that hunger, that pushed him to want to be the great ball player that he is right now. And we know what happened to him in the future. Like I say in Origins and Legacy, we see the origin right there with all his work, all his hard work he put in, and his legacy. Winning 5 NBA championships, winning tons of scoring titles, and becoming the great player that he is. Rest in peace on my man Kobe Bryant. He's a great inspiration. Adversity, people. Now, one I saw from a movie called Whiplash, which is about a young kid who wanted to be a great drummer. And the mentor that he had was a great musician himself. Who was always hard on him because he saw the man's potential, young man's potential. He wanted to be the best. And there was a time where he finally got his big break to play in front of a big crowd, and I think it was some scouts that kind of wanted to sign him or something like that. And he was on his way to the performance, and then on the way there, he ended up in a fatal accident where the car got hit and flipped over and just totally damaged. He grabbed his equipment, jumped out of the car while it was flipped upside down, ran to the performance, jumped on the drums. Luckily, he got there at the last minute on time. He started out on the first note really bad. He paused for a moment, but he didn't let nothing stop him from wanting to be great. He started over and started to get the drums, get the sound right, and he was starting to become more crisp and just going crazy with it. And actually just making a great performance. Even to a point where people were staring out at him because they couldn't believe how great he was playing. That's how bad he wanted it. And he ended up, being the great drummer that he wanted to be. I think he got signed or something like that to a band or something like that, but he ended up getting something greater after that. Adversity, people. Floyd Mayweather. Floyd Money Mayweather. Grew up in a house, mostly in poverty. Father was a boxer. He sold drugs. He ended up going to jail. And he was pretty much left alone. All he had was his grandmother. So he was stuck in a crossroads where he either had to go to school or he wanted to pursue his boxing career. And he had to drop out because he wanted to pursue his career. So he went on to live with a family who had this huge house, had mansions, all this stuff. And had everything, any man or any family could want as far as, a rich, wealthy family. And he stayed with them until he was about 18. They were sponsoring him. So he makes it all the way to the Olympics. And, he ended up getting the bronze medal, which when he should have won the gold, he got screwed over in the middle of that. And most people know that, American black boxers are usually the best boxers in the world. But, what the adversity went through is to be on his own and had to become a man at that age. But the one thing that people didn't see was that house that he lived in with those folks. That was his sponsor. He looked around the house, said he took a big stroll around there. It probably took like a whole hour or something. It had been one huge mansion. And he said to himself, one day, I'm going to live like this. And I think that's where the work ethic started to turn up to a point where he had that Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan type of complex where he knew he had to practice, and keep working until he got where he is. Now, Floyd Mayweather is undefeated, got all his health, 100% of his money, is close to worth $1 billion. If not $1 billion, at least a good couple $100 million. And because of his work ethic and because of that adversity, he's at where he's at right now. Adversity. Muhammad Ali, the great Muhammad Ali, one of, if not the greatest boxer of all time, was exiled from boxing for 3 years. 3 whole years. All because the government wanted him to go into the war, but he had his own beliefs that a man should never kill another man. And actually took a little bit longer than that before, he got back into the ring. But he had that hunger, that drive to want to get his title back. When he came back from exile, he fought Smoking Joe Frazier. He ended up losing that bout. But that hunger never went away. That was his second setback. But the hunger, the adversity, is what pushed him to want to be better. So, a couple more years later, I think it was about 3 to 4 more years after that fight, Muhammad Ali ended up winning his title back that was rightfully his in Kinshasa, Zaire, against George Foreman, and was finally back on top again. Adversity, man. Adversity. Now, another one from my favorite TV show called Martin. There was a great moment in Martin's show where Martin finds a way to make his dream come true. And what I always admired about Martin in this show was that he always talked to himself as he was already big time. He already had the vision in his head. So he will always speak it, which is manifesting it. He would say lines like, I got juice. I'm going to call some people. Oh, do you know what you got? Do you know what's standing in front of you? Or like when he got his first job in TV being a host, he was a janitor at the time. And when they called him, he went ahead and took the interview, even though he didn't have the job yet. The funny thing about it was his girlfriend Gina asked him, you quit your job before the other one. And he was already thinking like he already had a job. And he always tell Gina when Gina would ask him something, he said, look, they called me. He said, it's in my nature to be the man. It's in my nature to be that guy. He was already thinking that he was great before it even happened. So when he finally got the job at the TV station to be assistant it was assistant. And, he was the kind of guy who does, brings all the food for everybody and things like that. The host of that small show ended up getting sick, he ended up going to jail. Got locked up for a few years. Next thing you know, the owner of the TV station asked him to take over. Then he ended up starting to come back, and he got his big break of being a TV host on a small TV show, talk show. Then as years went by, Martin's tape of the show ended up getting in the hands of some Hollywood producers. They ended up calling him up, coming out to Detroit where he lives at to meet him and talk to him. about running his own show in L.A. Oh, one more thing before that. Before that happened, he went out to L.A. in a desperate attempt to try to get on a show with a guy named Vardell Hill, who was already a big-time Hollywood TV host. And Vardell wouldn't even give him a chance, wouldn't even put him on the show. So the crazy thing about it is that he wanted it so bad, the adversity of being pushed by that. He jumped out on stage and started singing with the singing group that was actually on the show. And, Vardell got mad at him, and went off on him after the show was over. But to be able to have the guts to go out and do something like that, even though he wasn't supposed to do that, shows his hunger because of the adversity. But yeah, fast forward, go back to what I was saying after that. To fast forward it, he ended up getting his own TV show in L.A. and finally got the success that he was hungry for because of all the adversity. So, adversity can make you or break you. It's up to you of where you want to go with it. So when something happens to you that you don't understand, it's only because it's only telling you that you're meant for something bigger. All you have to do is hold on, keep working, and the universe will bless you. That's the story for today. Make sure y'all go on to originsandlegacies.com. Get you some gear. Why not work on your future and look fly at the same time? That's a great thing. That's what that's all about, baby. Why not do that? So go ahead and let adversity make you the great person you are inside. AJ Dubs, catch you on the next one.
Praying that I don't drown from this money fountain. Another million buried, that's thanks to my accountants. Hello world, I would like you to meet our worst nightmare.